Here is Michelle Monahan and James Modern.
Can you stand or should we sit over there?
Stand. She's going to put pictures of you there. No, no, no. Michelle. Oh, I see. Okay. And Roger has a special award for you, the Golden Thumb. Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
See, these aren't generic. They even have your names on them.
Thank you. So this is the best looking thumb I have ever seen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We'll take them and we will.
That's so cool.
Christy Lemire from the Associated Press is moderating, and David Poland.
We're talking about strollers backstage. Thanks.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, we were talking about strollers backstage. It's very exciting. Yeah, I reacted to this much more emotionally this time now that I have a child of my own. And I don't know if it happened to you as well, but I'm wondering, Michelle, if now that you have a child of your own, watching this, do you react differently to this material?
I don't think I do, because I mean, I always sort of, it's interesting now that I have a child. She's 17 months, and thank goodness I'm maternal. So that's a good sign. But I don't know if I react differently to it. You know, it was pretty raw for me going through it, and I didn't have a child then, and I still feel the same way about it. I don't know if my performance would be any different. I don't think it would, having a child, because sort of just playing a character, so.
Who is so clearly, obviously different from you in every possible way.
Yeah, maybe.
So James, you saw her in North Country and you knew she had this in her. What did you see in that performance that told you?
Yeah, I mean, I had seen her in a lot of things, actually. I mean, nothing that would, if you were looking on the surface, maybe not directly see, somehow that it was Diane, but that Michelle was Diane. But there's a film called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang that she's great in.
She was great in.
And yeah, and in North Country. And she's been in films along the way that I've watched, like Winter Solstice. She was very good in. And there's a certain watchability to Michelle, and she's got a very interesting face. But it was, if you want to look specifically at North Country, because it's much, you can kind of see it more, I guess. There was one shot in North Country that I always had liked very much, and I was the shot that now I went to go watch it again. Like when I first saw it, I was like, it seemed like it was like in a big frame, and it was like a 20-second shot, and it was like this great shot, but really it's just a few seconds. But it's just her character saying goodbye to Charlize Theron's character at a trailer after Charlize is trying to get Sherry, to try to help her in the lawsuit. And it was just a moment where she's just very silent in the frame, and it just was like, it was that moment where I was like, that's it. Because I'd written in a very particular way, and it was somebody that I wanted it to be someone that was familiar. It was someone that had a very sort of naturalistic feeling to them, had a sort of almost like a lightness, and I sort of compare, some of my favorite performers are like Jenna Rollins and Sally Field, and so they kind of approach it very lightly, but at the same time they have a lot of depth, they have a lot of soul, and it's deceiving how light they play it, and then before you know it, you're kind of sucked into this deeper world with them. And Jenna Rollins was somebody that I always had thought of as that character in a certain way, her certain performances and even faces, which wouldn't really necessarily indicate with Trucker. But with Michelle, it was like I saw it and it was like, it's perfect. Where is she? Gotta go track her down and find her.
So he knew you had this in you, but did you know you had this in you?
I never think I have it in me. I mean, for me, when I read this, I put it down in my lap, and there was no question whether I was going to do it or not. I mean, if you're an actor and you love your job, this is the sort of stuff that you dream about doing. This was a role of a lifetime, and you know, I believed in it, and I believed in James tremendously, and I really, really connected with the character. And so, you know, even on that first day, you know, I don't know if I have it in me, but I'm going to do my best. And so I'm very proud of it.
You should be. And you say you connected with her, but there's a lot of very unlikable, very uncompromising stuff about her. So how did you get into that?
Well, for me, that was the most appealing thing about the role, is that, you know, on first glance, it was a character or a person that most people wouldn't identify with, that's pretty unlikable, I guess, by most people's standards, and makes decisions probably that most folks wouldn't. But that was the challenge, you know. Everybody makes decisions and choices because of one reason or another, but I never saw her as sort of a bad person. And I was really intrigued at playing somebody and humanizing them, I guess. And I don't even care if you sort of like her in the end, but I just want you to hopefully understand her and where she's come from and where she's going. And so that's what appealed to me most, you know, not playing the likable gal all the time, you know. It's pretty boring.
So how did you create her? What you mentioned Jenna Rollins, of course, but how do you find that balance of making her complex and intriguing and yet connectable, for lack of a better word?
I mean, it really, for me and for the process of it, I mean, it was a story that I had lived out in the California desert for a little while, and I had seen a lady truck driver that sort of I guess it's an inspiration. It's like a kernel of something, but it's like a lot of things, you know. I grew up mostly with a single mother, and you don't have too much, and you sort of grow up quick as the son of a single mother, and I don't want to be so specific about it, because it's not it's not really it's that when you're a single mother, it's very difficult for you. I think it's just almost like a distilled version of what it is to be a woman, I guess. I'm going to speak for, I mean, I can't really exactly speak for women. I have a twin sister and kind of was raised by them, so I have some insight. At least I've watched them a lot, so, you know, so to see what it is. But is that they're judged very harshly every step of the way. They're either too nice, or they're too mean, or they're too sexy, or their tits are too big or too small. Like, all the way along the way, that you can't win. And so a lot of this piece was about sort of that identity, like when you try to buck that identity, and how much of it is from other people and how much of it is coming out of your own head, and where do they kind of meet. And so for Diane, she will do anything to be free, in what her perception of freedom is, anything. I mean, you see what she does, and she tries to define her life. You know, she says, you have 3 weeks to be here, you have 5 minutes, I'm going to own this house someday, I'm going to pay it off everything is, the parameters of her life and the perimeters are very defined. And so in that way, she's always trying to, well, I always feel that character is always trying to get to this point, you know, to try to be free. And so in looking into that character, it was always that feeling like, what is the implication, you know, of being a human being beyond that? Like, what's the implication of being the identity of a human? Because you're a woman or you're a man, but at the same time, you're kind of living as a human being, and you're living in your head, and you're living out to other people. And so it was this thing where, with the approach to Diane and trying to create this, was to kind of create a world where she could identify her, you know, the identity was within this world, but where the actress, where Michelle could come in and kind of put on the jacket of it, I guess, if you will, and sort of feel it out herself. So for me, it was really like laying out these parameters almost, you know, that what Diane would in a certain way, and then for Michelle, you know, to come in and step in and sort of make it her own. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I know, it totally does. And yet, you know, from the second that Diane sees her son at the end of the driveway, you know that the transformation is inevitable. You know what's going to happen. They're going to change one another, of course. But she doesn't totally change who she is. And to the core, she still seems like this fierce, tough, rebellious woman.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think people in real life ever completely change. I mean, I hope not. I mean, people stay true to themselves, and I think that's what was one of the reasons too that I identified with this role in this movie was, you know, these are real people, you know, with real problems and real struggles, and it's not candy-coated, and sort of, I really like the idea that she's not a victim, and she's not sentimental, and the movie's not sentimental, I don't think, in the end, but that you just might get an idea that she may live her life a little bit differently, or that she's been enlightened somehow, but yet she will still go on about her life and be that woman that she is, you know, with or without him.
Roger mentioned in the lead of his review that he thought your ending was perfect. Was that always the ending?
Yeah, that was always the ending. I mean, in fact, that ending was really the beginning. I mean, in writing, there was one shot that I had in my mind, which is the one where she's walking to the truck, that very long shot, and at the beginning of the film, and then at the end, it was always kind of that very small, kind of more like a play. I mean, in a certain way, it has a certain theatrical feeling. It's quite kind of microscopic. And it was always, and I had written that first, and knowing what the other parts would be. But we didn't really do a lot of rehearsal, but we did rehearse maybe a few scenes. But one scene I really wanted to rehearse was that last scene, because I knew I was going to go back and work on the script a little bit. And the way that I was going to approach, you know, that we were all going to approach the film, I wanted to calibrate the tone of that particular scene very carefully. Like because I really don't like sentimentality. Like, it's one of those invented emotions that I find kind of despicable when you see it, like, and it immediately makes me hate whatever I'm watching. But it doesn't mean I don't like redemption or hope. It's just not when it's, with 25 violins and whatever it is. But so with that last scene, we in the rehearsal, I wanted to see how it kind of felt and played, and it played really well, and really it was just pretty much the way it was, and that was always the close of the film. Yeah.
And that felt perfect to you, too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, how good is Jimmy Bennett, who played my son? Yeah, he's such a, he's 12 when we made this, and I'm not lying when I say he had a longer resume than I did.
He was in Star Trek that year, too, right?
Yeah, yeah, and, but when he turned up, and we rehearsed that scene, and he just understood the tone of the movie so well that when we rehearsed that, and we were both, I think, laying down in some room on the carpet, and we just both sort of felt it, and we sort of looked at each other, and all three of us did, and we were like, okay, let's like go make a movie in a couple of days, you know?
Yeah.
And he was just great, you know, and he was just such a significant part of the way that the movie turned out, and so.
And it really was sort of that way with making it too, because we all kind of understood what tone we were going for, and that's the way we really all approached it. With Michelle, I had the script, of course, and then she had agreed to do it, and then we kind of, I don't really like rehearsal that much, but it's sort of like we wanted to go sort of page by page through the script, like get on the ground with it a little bit, and I mean, it's not really getting it on its feet, but in a way to not spend so much time about having a feeling where the blocking was, or how people were going to behave with each other or whatever, but to somehow be very conscious of the emotionality of it, because it was such a simple story, and purposefully very simple. I mean, you know pretty much from the beginning what it's going to be. You can see it, and but at the same time, it's not difficult, but maybe it's freeing. I don't know, liberating and doing it that way, but to really connect with the emotional feeling of it, of these characters as they're going through something. So we kind of went through the script, and we just kind of drew out the dialogue a little bit. You know, it was sort of like refining it, and to make it to all of us sort of serve the story. That was always my thing, was to serve the story and not get in the way of what it was trying to do, and especially in the way of Diane Ford, you know, because that would make trouble for you. But it was that kind of feeling where you just get out of the way and try to just keep the tone of it very well. And so it really was like such a great joint effort on everyone's part that I still appreciate to this day.
Purposely simple because that's what it takes to get a movie like this made now, or to find a way to fund a movie that's this inexpensive? I mean, it's a hard road to travel.
I mean, you know, that movie that I saw the other day about Rwanda, that guy made that in 11 days, and that was a much more complicated movie than this one, you know. So, no, the movies I tend to like are pretty simple, you know. I mean, in terms of like, A lot of the movies from the 70s, like Five Easy Pieces or Badlands, or even like Two Lane Blacktop. There's a certain kind of, like, I mentioned it before, but there's a certain B quality to those films. They're not exactly B, but they're very straightforward in the presentation of the story. But then within it, like especially with Nicholson, even like The Last Detail has a feeling of that, and that's what Hal Ashby was really great at. Was kind of, you look at his films and then you're like, is that a Hal Ashby style, the way it's shot or whatever? But it's never really, you can't identify in that way. But what you can identify is the emotionality of those films. That is pervasive. Runs through, not all of them, because some of them are really crappy, but the great ones, like.
But this is your canvas. I mean, this is the canvas you as an artist want to work on.
Well, no. I mean, that, like I said, like I tend to like this type of story, but this is the story I was telling at this time, and so I just wanted to turn myself over to it in the way that I felt that it was giving back to me. And so there's a couple of other scripts I'm working on that are very different in their subject matter, but I would hope that somehow I would be able to. I mean, I learned a lot from Michelle, actually, about an approach to filmmaking. I can tell you more, but it would go on and on. But
so what did you learn from Michelle?
This is what I learned from Michelle, which is that you must open your heart to your own destruction. That is what you must do in order to create something that's really great. You really do. No, it's true. You can see she took a big risk out there doing that, and she's in almost every frame, and she really lives it on the screen. And so I felt like I had a duty to the film in that way. Like when you're directing it or writing it, it's all kind of in here, and it sort of takes a while for it to get down, and sometimes it never gets down to here, really. But I learned that in the process. I was like, shit, she's doing that and that and that. I guess I better do something good with this. But
so she didn't say those words, but she lived those words.
No, she doesn't. She wouldn't even know. I mean, no, she wouldn't know. I mean, she just lives it. She's a certain way. So
because you are the nicest human being on earth, I think, perhaps on the list of the top 10.
Right.
And yet
I wish my folks were here to hear that.
Michelle's from Iowa, and there are a lot of people who are friendly in Iowa, but that's a pretty tough state. They're the first one for the primaries, and they're pretty liberal, and you might not think that they've got all these like things going on in their head, the Iowans. Very crafty people, tricky.
So is the darkness a great place for you to go? I mean, because you seem to be
Sure.
very well-adjusted, very sane, happy.
Yeah, but we've all got like dark places to go, certainly. I mean, I think for me, to be able to kind of explore all those facets of my personality it's a gift, It really is. It's a gift to be able to do that on screen, and to be able to put myself in somebody else's shoes, and to connect in some way. For me, I spent a lot of time with female truckers. And I spent a lot of time, I got my CDL, I went to truck driving school so I could drive the truck, which was one of the best things I've ever done, and the scariest things I've ever done. And, I'm from a working class community, and, I don't necessarily see it as going to a place that's dark. I just think it's reality, to be honest. And, these people, everybody here, you have real struggles, and, to be able to explore that on film and to see something that's real that audiences can really, really connect to and see themselves in is, it's pretty refreshing, I think, if you like film and you like people.
You do a lot of big studio movies, and then this little movie comes to you. Mm-hmm. I mean, did it just show up and you just fell in love the first time you read it through? Or?
Yeah, that was it. It was as simple as that. My agent called and said, I'm sending over a script. I think you're really, really going to like it. And that was it. I met James the next day, and I attached myself to it, and we fought like hell for like the next year to get the money, and then we lost the producers we had, and then we managed to get, like I said earlier, I think $1.5 million, and we got 19 days to shoot it, and we just went out and we did it, So if there's any young filmmakers out there, you can do it. I mean, we did it, so.
And also, every time you see Michelle driving the truck, she really is driving it. We didn't have a trailer or anything. She's really behind the wheel of the truck, so it's kind of cool.
So what is physically harder than driving the truck and doing all the stuff with the rig, or something like Eagle Eye, where you're running around?
Oh my God, the running nearly killed me.
Eagle Eye was harder.
I had no idea, you know, the sprints that I'd be doing take after take after take. No, but no, the truck driving was, well, this is the deal I made with James when we were sort of going through the script, and I was working on another movie at the moment, so I didn't. I said, you know, as soon as I finish this movie, I'm going to truck driving school. This place called Dutzen's out on the 10 west of LA, and I said, you know, if I don't get my license, I'm not making the movie. And it was the truth, you know, it's a deal that I made with myself and James, and I just thought there's no way I can make this movie and make it as believable and honest as it deserves to be, as in the way that it was written and intended to be, without being able to actually drive a fucking truck.
I never made that deal.
And anyway, it was pretty remarkable for me because I don't even drive a stick shift, like still. I don't even know how to drive a stick shift, so my husband's like, what do you mean you can drive an 18-wheeler and you can't drive a stick shift? So.
And if the whole acting thing doesn't work out, you have a side gig lined up, which is nice.
Seriously. I mean, my dad's got a CDL, and my brother's got a CDL, so when I brought that to the kitchen table, I felt like pretty hot shit.
So do you guys plan on making a series of movies together now? Is that the...
Yes.
You're going to team up?
Yeah, we're kind of working on what I like to call like the Days of Heaven for Michelle Monaghan. So I'm working on a couple of things like that, and she. I mean, it's really really fun to work with her, and she's got an interesting presence, and she's very fun to photograph, and so it's almost. I mean, it takes a long time to come to a story, but it kind of, you know, it's inspiration for the story that we're kind of working on as we go along. You know, in between other things, but. Yeah.
And to answer that, I mean, you know, so often it was great to work with James. I'm going to kind of kiss his ass here for a second, but he's great as a filmmaker in the sense that if you're an actor, he doesn't bog you down with a lot of dialogue and baloney, and you know, you can't really act through that, and people don't really talk like that all the time, you know, and so he allows the camera to sort of linger, and I think in those moments it's sort of when you discover like who you are and who the characters were, and so you know, it's a testament to him, and you know, he allowed me to have that performance that I did because he didn't yell cut, and now when I think back at it, it's really amazing because we were really under the gun. It's not like we had a lot of time or a lot of takes, and he was very patient, so that was you know, so of course I'm going to work with him again.
Is the movie we saw today pretty much exactly the script, or a lot of improv, or any improv, anything, any room for that in 19 days?
Yeah, I improv'd a little bit. Yeah. Just tiny, like maybe that's a nice stick you got there.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite lines in the movie.
It is. It's a good stick you got there.
But you respected the script. You stuck to the...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ever feel like there was, and it's interesting because, you know, I do like to improv a lot, and I do sort of in the other films that I make, but it never struck me too, like it never felt like it needed anything in addition. I think I might have swore a little bit more than I was supposed to, but Jimmy definitely did. He learned how to swear on this movie, actually.
He was innocent and you corrupted him.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, but I love that he never calls you mom, and you never call him Peter. It's always like dude or hey or kid, and he calls you Diane. And only at the end is it hinted that now you're mom now.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, God, I'm sorry.
I think you may have corrupted Roger Ebert, too, because now he uses the S word in his Twitter feed. Shocking.
Right. And LOL and WTF. Yes. You guys have a ton of questions for these guys, I'm sure, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So go ahead and raise your hand. I know we have a mic going around, and we'll hopefully get to as many of you as possible. Where's the mic, just so I know? Someone has... Okay, right there. Thank you. I can't see the mic. It'd be helpful if I could see it. It will be on soon. You guys don't leave. We have more
Hello?
information for you.
Yes, we
It's going to
have
be really scintillating, I promise. The best stuff's coming. You will be quizzed on it after this. That is true.
we have a question right here in the
Great.
in
Thank
the
you very
center.
much.
Hi. It was a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And I've got a question about the wardrobing. I have often heard that wardrobing will help create a character for an actor. And Diane's boots told the story in themselves. Could you comment on that?
Oh, I had to give those boots back. Can you believe it? Oh, so every time I see those boots, thank you for that comment. I can't begin to tell you. First of all, it was really hard for us to find the wardrobe for this movie. I know it seems really easy or whatever, but we couldn't find the right boots, I remember. And James knew of a gal who used to herd horses.
She led donkey rides down to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, so she lent me her boots. So I had to give them back, of course. But every morning I put those boots on, and it's interesting, it really does. It changes the way you carry yourself, the way you walk, and so those were incredibly instrumental. So, yeah, every time I see them on screen, my heart kind of goes aflutter.
We have one right here in front, I believe. A question right here. Ma'am.
There's a question
sorry.
in the back.
Oh, is there?
On the lower level.
Interesting. I was not aware of that. There you are.
You answered my question, but the very first question that came to mind as the credits roll is, when are you going to do another one? So all I really have to say is, you guys are just spectacular, and I'm really glad to hear you doing another one, and may you do it for many years.
Did you bring your checkbook tonight?
I did.
No? Okay, good. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Where did you actually get the money? Where did the money come from ultimately?
The money came from some film investors, but at the time, I think they're very, very generous, to take a chance on a movie like this. I think one of the people ran a amusement park and a chain of hairdressers, and I think the other man was in real estate, and they were very generous, and they just left us alone. And we just went and did it. So I'll call them again and see if they want to try it out. But it's but it took a little while to put together, but we figured it out.
Balcony straight in front of you.
Hi, I just wanted to put this to you. It's not really a question, but I would like a response. I noticed that you were saying you don't like sentimentality, which I can appreciate from the movie. However, I did notice also that you had her smelling her child and moving stealthily across the street to attack, and again and again providing us with not necessarily a sentimentality, but almost an animal-like protection. And at the end, it looked more like she was snuggling her cub rather than anything else. I don't want to insult anything. Don't take this wrong. It's just an observation on my part that I really appreciated personally. I thought this was like a lot closer to the reality of a person who's probably been hurt, beat, molested, raped, whatever for her life, and who had decided to try to bring somebody into the fold. And it seemed more real and more natural than any sentimentality could. So, like I said, it's not a question, it's an observation, but if you could, approach that, I'd like that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think those were our sentiments. Pardon the pun. Exactly. I think moving forward, James obviously had written the scene in which she comes in and she sniffs her son, and it was very sort of primal. Very early on, we sort of found my inspiration for the role, which was Mustangs, horses, and how they're sort of always wild and free, and you can't really corral them, and as much as you just want to make them into something that they're not, you just can't do it. So that was always sort of, I think, lingering in the back of our minds, and it was more of an animalistic, primal sort of mother. It was never sort of that relationship of like mother and son the way it was supposed to be, It was always just that, the primal instincts, I guess, of a mother.
It seems like in that moment, it's the first time she allows herself to do what a mother does, which is to smell her kid. I mean, you have a kid.
Yeah.
And you know you love smelling the kid.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I didn't have, and James has 3 children, 3 daughters, and I was like, so she's gonna sniff her kid? And he was like, yeah, you'll see. It's just, it's just what you do. And I was like, all right. And then I remember, like, one day I was sniffing my daughter. I was sort of like, she's laying on my chest, and I could smell her breath. I just thought, oh, that's the best smell in the whole wide world. Meanwhile, if anybody else smelled it, they probably thought I was,
But it is that with that scene that was, I had done a series of documentaries, and one was on wild mustangs, and I'd gone out and seen the roundups on the BLM land, and I'd seen these cowboys go out and with helicopters and bring back these wild mustangs, and it's like one of them came back and it had the foal had come in, and then they brought the mother in, and there were three cowboys on 3 big horses, and these mustangs are slight, they're pretty wiry little things, but they could not get this thing down on the ground. Like they had 3 lassos on it, they couldn't do it, and they finally did, and it kind of broke my heart to see it, because just because she was scared or whatever, but strong, and wild, and it was always in my mind. I mean, with Michelle, but it was always in my mind, that feeling where they're these wild creatures, and people don't want them there because they shouldn't be there, or they weren't there originally, or whatever it is. But it doesn't make them any less wild, It doesn't. You can rationalize who something is or what it is because it's affecting you in this way, but it doesn't change the essence of what they are as a creature. And so what you try to do then is to remove it where you don't want it. And it was very touching. It was almost like a kind of a boxing match or something to see this Mustang go down. And in terms of those scenes, where she's very, she reacts. I like Diane because she doesn't intellectualize these things. She does what people would do in their hearts if they had the guts to do it in a certain way, in a certain sense. But that sniffing scene is a moment where, I always think of Diane as saying all these things that she thinks and believes and wants to do, but she has a very broad kind of internal life that's a very gentle kind of quiet place to her that she gets back to. And so you see her say all these things and do these things and whatever it is with the people around her, but it's only when the boy is asleep and can't see her have that she can have that internal life kind of turned inside out for a moment. So to me, it was always a big part of the movie, just that little, it's maybe a throwaway, but it always meant a lot to me, that part.
In front of us here, right? Please.
Because I want to see Michelle in many more movies, I have to ask this personal question. Are you addicted to smoking now?
No, I'm not. I can tell you that I quit smoking. So I quit smoking over 2 years.
It really bothered me to see someone in a modern movie smoking, and I thought, oh God, if she's addicted.
No, I quit smoking 2.5 years ago. Thank you.
When you got pregnant, you stopped smoking? Yes? Oh, sorry. Wait, where are you? There you are. Hi.
Hi. Hey, I really love the Diane character and the runner character, the Diane character and the runner character, and their relationship was unusual. Tell me how you approached that, James and Michelle, if you would.
Well, I like that relationship just in a way that it was kind of a difficult one. To me, that runner character I always like him because it's sort of like, to me, it's sort of like watching a country song the way he is. There's a certain way that he's like, he always kind of says just about the right thing, even though it's a little weird sometimes, it's a little off, And he's sort of like, in writing that character, it was I can never remember, and I know I'm going to say it wrong, and there, Roger Ebert, is he still here or did he leave? If he did, then I can say it and make a mistake. But I think it was in Making Movies that Sidney Lumet wrote about Elia Kazan, how his approach with certain characters that were unlikable, like Brando on the water, or I'm going to say unlikable for expediency, but on the waterfront and facing the crowd. There's Brando and then there's Andy Griffith, and so what he would have is these characters that from the outside would be you just didn't really want to be around them that much, but you got who they were, but then they would have a character like Eva Marie Saint, who was very good, like a good character, like could see the light of day, but still loved that troubled character in a way. And so I had to read that a couple of times, but it was something that I was thinking when I was writing that, which is that he really genuinely likes her, he loves her. I mean, I think, but and so, but he's very honest. He's very straightforward. I guess even though he's kind of cheating on his wife, but
only kind of though.
But,
They only kiss.
only kind of. But and so in a way, I think that you can kind of see her through him, through his eyes. And so that was always. I mean, that was a very small part of it. It was more than that. I just liked the relationship of it.
But I thought like the key line was Michelle kind of threw away. It was almost under her breath of "You're never leaving your wife. You know you're never leaving Sam," or whatever her name was. And that was like her real. I thought that was her moment where she realized it wasn't just even the idea of not being a whore person or whatever, but that she could have something with this man, but he wasn't gonna make the change. She was making the change, and he wasn't going with her.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Who else do we have? Hello.
I'm interested in the distribution and how broadly this was made available, because it seems to me you've got some big names and familiar faces in this, and but I at least wasn't aware of it until the film festival. So I'm curious whether it turned out that you got the distribution that you expected, or was that a disappointment? Or can you discuss the business side of it a little bit?
It was a little disappointing in the sense that I would have liked to have had it been distributed more broadly and more money put behind it to distribute it. That being said, it did come out in the theaters, which was a great thing. And when we sold it, it was a time and it's still a very difficult time, but it was extremely difficult for any money. No money was flowing. This was like a year ago, year and a half. You know, it was really an ugly, ugly moment in, economic history, but in film for financing and all that kind of stuff. And it's done really great in, it was in Redbox and all the downloads. So it's done extremely well in that, because I think, for instance, like this review from Roger, it was, you can see, you can almost see the sales go up. Do you know what I mean? Like when it was on the top 10 list, it's these sorts of things, and this is why I respect what he tries to do, because it's not just criticizing the movie like yes or no, but somehow from somebody who has such a sense of film history and the importance of film in American life and the world, really, to give it a context in which you can understand it and approach it. And that's what this film sort of needs. It never really fit, I never really made it to be like a gritty indie where everyone's getting the shit kicked out of them at all times. Even there's stuff in there. But it's quite mild. It's almost more, it's not allegorical, of course, but there's a sort of kind of a dreaming quality to it in certain parts. And so, so it didn't really fit into the regular commercial world where everyone's cutesy. I don't know if you can get the sense of that film, but the way that that we shot it, but also the way it's cut, is that it's calibrated to kind of go down the middle. Like it never gives itself away. It never turns itself over to you. Like there are places where you might laugh, but within the same kind of sense, there's something sad or something. I'm not going to try to quantify it because it wasn't so cerebral as that, but I'm just trying to point out that it never quite fit into, unless it was like, for me, it was always like it would fit great in about 1974, but I'm always out of time anyway. And so in answer to your question, it was not what I thought it would be, and I think that at the time we were going to sell it to some places. We couldn't really get a guarantee of a theatrical distribution from some of them at the time. But in hindsight, the movie turned out just how I thought it would, and wanted to, and people see it now. And I think they'll probably see it more in the future.
Joey Lauren Adams had a film here at Ebertfest a couple years ago, I guess now, that was in a similar situation. I think they had distribution through Sony Classics, but also did not get as much of a play, and another film that Roger championed.
Was that Come Early Morning?
Yes.
Yeah, and she came to the set, because I had watched it, and after I'd written, of course, we were working on it, I watched it, and she came and she looked at, there's Runner's truck, and she said, "Hey, you're using my truck." I guess she had the same truck at her movie. Maybe in my mind, I don't know, but yeah, but she's a great writer, a great
so much is
filmmaker.
digital now. Do you, as a filmmaker, have that thing where you need to see it on a big screen, or is it the fact that more and more people have a chance to see it on Netflix and all the other delivery systems now?
I would like to. I mean, the way to see it is on the big screen. I was very very careful with every frame of this, and really spent a great deal of time, hairs on heads and things like that to try to, because I think that in filmmaking, I used to when I was younger, and I still do sometimes, but do construction and build, and used to paint, and it was always the thing when you're building something, is that you want to make everything plumb and square and whatever else it is. But if you let things go, if you let a little nick of something go here, and you don't paint it quite well there, or something's a little off in the thing, no one's going to say, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. It's more that they're going to look at it, and it will affect them in sort of an aggregated kind of, or cumulative kind of thing. And so that was always my approach with this, was to be very careful with the small little things of it, because the overall feeling, you don't know why. I mean, maybe it bothers you because it sucks, I don't know, but like maybe it bothers you and you don't quite know why, but it might be something out of place, or so I would prefer if people could be able to see it. And I didn't think we saw it last time was maybe 3 months ago. I feel pretty blessed to be able to watch it again, especially on a screen like this, because I didn't think I'd get another shot at it.
Probably the biggest screen you've had a chance to see it on.
Yeah.
And the greatest
theater.
number of people as well. I think there's a big audience. So.
It's a beautiful theater, it really is.
Yeah, but I would guess that any eyeballs in any form would be preferable. I would guess having any eyeballs on the film in any form, whether it's on DVD, on Netflix, or whatever, downloaded, would be preferable.
I thought you said profitable, because that's not true.
That too. We're hoping.
It's profitable for someone else, just not us. Yeah. Really? Yeah. Preferable. Yes. And profitable. Yeah. It was a lot of fun to make that movie. It really was. We had a great time. And yeah. And Michelle driving the truck that was also an inspiration, because she came on the first day, and it was sort of like, am I going to be able to do this or not? I mean, she would, of course, been able to do it. But it's sort of like when you see the actress get into the truck and sit there behind it, and then you're out on the 60 freeway going 60 miles an hour, and you're in there with her. I mean, you hope you're going to live, but I didn't really think of that. It's kind of like looking around like, we're going to make it, right? But everyone's like, shit, if she can go do that, then we could do this in 19 days. You can get your ass in gear to go do all these things. So it was good.
You were too good at it.
She was great at it.
Did you fear for your own life on the 60 freeway?
Of course, I felt for mine, but I felt for Jimmy, because Jimmy was next to me, and his mom was so trusting, She's like, oh, you're fine, you can do it. And everybody believed in me, and I kind of believe in myself a bit, but that's a 53-foot trailer. That is really, really big. I was really more worried for everybody else on the road than I was for myself.
Let's get a couple more, then we should probably get out of here. Where's the mic?
We have a question over here.
Oh, thank you. Thank
to
God
the
you're doing
house
that
right.
for me. I can't see you. Cool.
Hi, I really enjoyed your film, and one of the most interesting things I found about it was the gender expectations and how they're sort of defied and flipped. With Runner and Diane's roles, they're sort of flipped from On the Waterfront, like you were saying. And was that something you gave a lot of thought to while making the movie, or did it just kind of happen that way?
It really was always about it was always about a lady truck driver in a certain way. And what I mean by that is that it wasn't like I was out there trying to find Rosie the Riveter or make something that was a political kind of thing, maybe a social kind of thing in my mind, But I know for myself, being raised with a woman who goes to work every day, and a lot of people, is women do all sorts, they do all sorts of things that you might not expect. And I think that there is a way that she is the way that Michelle played her, really, is what it is, but is the way that we approached it. Was that you'll notice she's hard. She's a hard woman in a certain way, but she's not like totally stereotypically that's a trucker. You know what I mean? It's sort of like a woman you might not. To me, it reminds me of like a woman you might have dated at one point in your life. Like someone who it didn't work out that great. But in terms of the gender thing, it was not conscious about flipping them in that certain way, but it was trying to say because I wasn't taking a woman and putting it in a man's thing. But what I was trying to say was like, this is true about women, like something that I've observed. Like this is true. This behavior, you know, in the hotel room, that's not that uncommon. You know, it's like, and so, you know, a lady trucker, I can see why I would think that, but it was never quite that. It was always more of a human story too about that. So I know I answered that like shit, but I tried my best.
I thought it was actually fascinating that as the movie progresses, you keep adding on moments where she's sexually vulnerable. And it's like for all the toughness in the first few minutes of the movie, you know, there are moments where she, down to being almost raped at the very end of the picture, there's like, and also I thought that you physically, watching it on a big screen helped to see it, became physically softer as the movie progressed. Was that intentional, or was that in the performance, or is it just what your spirit?
Maybe. I don't think it was necessarily intentional. I think I was probably at that point just kind of just caught up in the story. I can't say that any of it was conscious.
I mean, the thing with Michelle in directing, it was always kind of like, she's very, to say suggestible is not really the appropriate word exactly, but she has the ability to pick up a tone of something very, very precisely. So for me, I mean, I don't really, as far as directing, I don't say like happier or sadder or whatever it is. It's more like just saying where we kind of are in the story, and maybe like more like what the internal thing, what the subtext of what's happening in there is, you know, but very concrete kinds of things. You know, it was more like tone, and so she's very astute. I mean, she's brilliant at it, really, to be able to pick up on those things and then take them farther than you as a writer or director would be able to really understand, you know, to go down deeper and to understand a subtext of something. And it's very easy to say something has a subtext, but something can have many subtextuses, you know. You can go down and go around and like this. I mean, there's the surface thing. And so she would find these things that it was always a joy to go to the set every day, because it really was like Christmas, you know. You'd be like, what am I going to see? What kind of crazy shit am I going to see today? You know, there's always like something that was very touching, though. It wasn't just like someone going off the deep end, you know. There's very, very carefully, she did it very, very carefully.
Michelle had this look on her face like 3 times during this conversation, like she's learning about herself. As you're saying these things.
This is your life.
Let's do one more, that we should get out of here.
Level in the center, lower level.
Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know people want to get out of here, so I'll just ask a really quick question. I saw in the ending credits that there was a special thanks to Robert De Niro. I'm just curious why that is.
Because this film screened at Tribeca in 2007, and he owns Tribeca. So, but we appreciated them. They did a lot to help us and to promote it, and we were happy it was there. Yeah.
You guys, thank you all so much, and thank you, both of you, for coming.
Thank you.
David
Thanks a lot.
Poland. Have a good night.